All right. While more people are familiar with the pyramids of Egypt, there are actually more pyramid structures in the Americas than all other places on Earth combined. The Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca all built pyramids. While the basic design between the Great Pyramids of Egypt and those of the Americas are similar, their dimensions of the ratios of the sides of the base and the height are different. So the Egyptians' pyramids are kind of taller. Typically, the height is more than half the length of the sides of the base, while the Mexican and South American pyramids tend to be flatter. And by that I mean that the height is less than half the length of the base. So if the volume of a rectangular pyramid is found using the formula V volume equals 1/3 times length times width times height. Now that's just what we saw before, right? It's 1/3 times the rectangular solid volume that it would be otherwise if the whole thing was a solid block. So it's 1/3 times length times width times height. So if a pyramid were built with the length and width of the sides of the bases being the same size, so they're equal, so it's a square base, and the height was exactly 1/2, so right kind of in that threshold between the flatter Central American pyramids and the taller Egyptian pyramids, which of the following models the height of the pyramid in terms of the volume V? And we have a bunch of options.
Press pause and answer the question.
So if the volume of a rectangular pyramid is found using the formula V volume equals 1/3 times length times width times height. Now that's just what we saw before, right? It's 1/3 times the rectangular solid volume that it would be otherwise if the whole thing was a solid block. So it's 1/3 times length times width times height. So if a pyramid were built with the length and width of the sides of the bases being the same size, so they're equal, so it's a square base, and the height was exactly 1/2, so right kind of in that threshold between the flatter Central American pyramids and the taller Egyptian pyramids, which of the following models the height of the pyramid in terms of the volume V? And we have a bunch of options. Now this one is going to be the correct answer, this one right here. Let's figure out why. Now you're going to be tempted to set it up like this, right? So you're going to set it up like, all right, the bases are here, here's the base, and here's the base, and this height is 1/2 the base. So now let's go ahead and figure everything out. But here's a pro tip. You can see in the choices that it's not looking at the base, it's actually looking at the height. Like in other words, one of the things we're solving for here is the height relative to the volume, not the base. So instead of saying this is the base, this is B, and this is B, and this is 1/2 B, I think we're better off starting with H. And we say, okay, this is H, and this is then 2H, and this is 2H, because the height of the pyramid is exactly 1/2 the length of the base of the pyramid. So let's start with that, and we get something that looks like this. We know that volume equals 1/3 times length times width times height. And we can see that because the length and the width are each 2H, and the height is still height, we get the volume is equal to 1/3 times 2H times 2H times H. So we'll take those two 2's and we'll bring them over here and we'll multiply them, and then we get the volume is equal to 4/3, and we'll take these 3 H's and we'll multiply them, and we say the 4/3 times the height cubed. Now we want to isolate H because that's what the choices are in the problem. So what we can do is we can say, okay, we have 4/3 H over here, so we're going to multiply this by 3/4 to make it go away. Then 4/3 times 3/4 just becomes 1. And then we have to multiply the other side by 3/4. That's what we do if we need to cancel out a fraction, we just multiply it by the inverse of the fraction. But we have to do it for both sides. So now we have 3/4 of V, the volume, is equal to H cubed. And always just kind of remember, it's so easy to get caught up and just lost in the idea that these are just numbers and letters on a page, but they have real meaning in real life. So what we're saying for this particular pyramid is that 3/4 of the volume is equal to the height of the pyramid cubed. So some real distance in height. If we take that number and cube it, then we have 3/4 of the volume of the pyramid in that number. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the cube root of both sides. And one way to take the cube root is we're going to take each side and we're going to raise it to the exponent 1/3. So anytime we have an exponent raised to another exponent, we multiply those two exponents. So we have h cubed to the 1/3 on one side, and we have 3v over 4, or 3/4 of v, to the 1/3 on the other side. And that gives us our correct answer.